I am constantly bombarded with a singular request. From Blender hobbyists to a few high-ranking government officials, everybody's asking me to do a character design course. Now I'm all for peer pressure and a little bit of light coercion, but I'm not doing a course. Not quite yet. I'm working on something else that's pretty cool that will hopefully bring a lot of value to you, the YouTube viewer, and to the broader motion design audience. So until then, this 4-part video series that breaks down my entire workflow to create characters, which is totally free to you by the way, will have to suffice. So with that, welcome to Sweet Boy's Character Lab, Part 1, Design and Build. Over the span of the next 4 videos, I will take you through the entire process that I used to create those fun characters that you just saw. Now, a disclaimer that I want to make, and I feel like I say it often, I am a motion designer. That comes with a desire and a drive to create the prettiest picture in the shortest amount of time. The workflow that we'll explore today is a far cry from Pixar's character production pipeline. It's full of shortcuts, cheap tricks, and is a scourge to the term industry standard. The character that we'll be creating together is really simple, it's very stylized, and it's super optimized. Perfect for a short film or a motion design project. But with that said, we will cover all of the basics that you'll need to know. There's not going to be any monkey see, monkey click button. By the end of this series, you should walk away with a solid, adaptable workflow, new skills that are necessary to bring your characters to life, and an actual product, a finished character that you can post on Instagram and show everybody around you that you're better than them. In this first video, we're actually going to take some time to make our own design decisions based on this nude sketch. We'll then tackle the initial modeling of some of the basic parts and round it off with some sculpting and some retopology. So if you're ready for me to shut up and for us to get going on making a character, be sure you download the project files that'll be linked below, and be sure to grab a copy of Sweet Buttons Pro, a tool designed by me that'll just make some things that we're doing in here a little bit easier. That's also linked below. All right, let's get to it. So as I said, we're actually going to start by making our own design decisions. I have my pin display here. If you don't have one of those, you can use a pin tablet. You could even use a mouse or print off this layout sketch that I gave you off of a printer and use a crayon. Doesn't matter to me. All we need to do is just kind of make some decisions here. Modeling a character or designing a character in general is just a billion decisions all strung together. And we're going to start by kind of making our lives a little bit easier here and make some design decisions about what our character is going to wear, what kind of hair he's going to have, or she, if you're going to do a female character, and just kind of make some choices. So I'm going to choose a nice red color here. I'm going to come in here and just kind of draw some clothes over, but before I do, I'm going to turn on symmetry. That way I don't have to repeat myself and do things twice. That'll just make my life a little bit easier here. Okay, so for my character, I'm just going to make him a dude, and I'm going to give him some hair. I'll start here, and then I'll actually go back once I turn symmetry off and kind of give him some asymmetrical hair pieces. But we're also going to start with a t-shirt, so I'm just going to put a line here and just kind of Bob Ross it, some happy little lines. The t-shirt is just going to be really simple, but I am going to make it a little bit longer on the longer side and maybe give it a curved hem like that. Really what I want to do is kind of cover up this area right here of his crotch. That way I don't have to make pants that are kind of like this, that have the crotch arc there. It's kind of annoying to do. It's actually not the end of the world. It's not that much work. It's just mildly annoying, so I don't want to deal with it. So I'm not going to. So instead I'm just going to cover these up so that the legs here can just be tubes. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're just going to choose maybe right above the ankle. And I'm actually going to give it a little bit of some kind of like scrunched up. Just like some cuffs almost. That way we can have a little bit of design variation there. And that way I just remember that's kind of what I want to do when I actually get into Blender. Again, all of this is just kind of predetermining some design decisions, and we can change them on the fly. We can dial them in a little bit better once we actually get in Blender, but this just kind of helps us have an idea of what we're actually aiming for once we get into a 3D space, because the analysis paralysis can get overwhelming. And so we want to kind of choke down the limits to the amount of decisions we're going to make here. So with the shoes, I'm just going to do some classic Vans here. In fact, I will show you later on in a different video when we actually get into shading. We'll actually get in there and make a nice checker pattern, and we'll checker our shoes. So we'll do some classic Vans. I think something like that is nice and stylized. He does kind of have birthing hips here, which doesn't really matter, but it's kind of bothering me, so I'm going to just kind of change that a little bit. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to turn off symmetry here. And I'm just going to give him kind of the classic cartoon hair like this. Again, this is just a base mesh that's kind of something that I really like. I like these kind of bubbly, happy, goofy, simple characters. If you have a more elaborate design, that you'd like to do, if you have a more anatomically correct design that you'd like to do, it's all good. It's all good. You don't have to copy exactly what I'm doing here. We're just making some design decisions together. So this is now pretty good for that. If you want to go in here and actually add like a watch, if you want to add in a decal or some, pockets for cargo pants, go ahead. Make as many design decisions as you want. It does not bother me at all. So we're going to go in here and then also add the hair on the side profile. Again, just to kind of limit the amount of imagination we're going to have to use while we're actually designing. I can draw just a line right here so I can kind of see where the hem needs to hit. That's pretty low. So I might bring the hem up a little bit. See, doing stuff like that kind of helps you understand, okay, that's actually like very weird looking. So we'll just kind of go like this. Again, this does not have to be pretty or perfect. It just has to give us enough information to make it work. Okay, so now that's our new hem. So I'll just erase this line real quick. Whoop, like that. Perfect. Now I can bring the t-shirt here. And I think I'm going to have it kind of curve the other way, this way. And that will drop down. Our shoes, we can make some choices about the shoes here. I think it's going to be kind of I want that to be more rounded. Kind of be like this, maybe. I think that's starting to look right. And then the pants can kind of go like this. And I'm not going to get too in the weeds with the details, but maybe I'll even add in some wrinkles right here where the knees bend, just to give some more stylization. Okay, that is not my prettiest work ever, but it will work for this demonstration. This is my layout reference, so I'm going to save this out as a JPEG. If you're in Photoshop, you can do Command, Option, Shift, and W, every hotkey available, and you can just export that out as a JPEG, PNG. We're going to bring it into Blender in just a second. All right, now assumedly you went ahead and exported everything out, and now we should just have our layout with a draw over on top of it so we can reference it. So we're going to bring that here into Blender as a reference image so we can kind of use that to guide our modeling decisions here. So the first thing we want to do is actually snap into orthographic view. So we can hold down the tilde key, and we're going to go into the front view. That's also 7 on the number pad. And from the front view, we can hit Shift A, and we're going to go to image right here, and we're going to click reference, and then we can just select our reference image wherever we saved it. So once we brought that in, that works pretty good, but don't go trying to line it up with the origin point quite yet. We're going to make some tweaks to the image itself so that it actually kind of lines up and just kind of improves the quality of life in Blender. So the first thing we're going to do is go over to the properties panel here. It'll look like kind of a classic motel art painting here with the mountain and the sun. And we're going to tick on opacity just like that. Then we can kind of drop it down to something that feels comfortable. Then we're going to turn off perspective. That way, when we're rotating around, it's not just visible and kind of in our face, just right there. And it's only visible when we snap into our orthographic view right here. And if you're not familiar with how to snap into orthographic view, you can click one of these little bubbles right here. Or of course, as you're navigating around, you can hold down the Option key. So again, with this selected and in our data properties panel over here, we can now actually change the offset. So the reason we want to change the offset as opposed to just moving him right here is in a moment, we're going to scale him to match an actual size reference, and scaling him and then adjusting him, it's just all a pain. So we're just saving ourselves a little bit of time in the future by doing this like this. So we're going to change the offset by of the X a little bit here, and we're just going to kind of square it up on the x-axis, and then we're going to change the y-axis. And if you've only ever been in Blender, it might seem weird that the y-axis is up and down, but if you come from a normal software where the y-axis is up and down and the z-axis is back and forth, this makes a lot more sense to you. So this is just 2D plain stuff. So there we go. We have it there. In fact, in orthographic view, we can kind of move it back in the y-axis just to give ourselves a little bit more space while we're modeling. That way it doesn't clip through. Now let's go ahead and duplicate this, okay? We can hit Shift-D to duplicate that, and we're just going to rotate that in the Z-axis 90 degrees, and then we're going to snap into the, I think it's left? Nope, it is the right side. That's 6 on the number pad. And we're just going to do the same kind of thing here. We're going to move the the X offset, and we're just going to kind of put this exactly where we think it should be, and that's lined up about like right there. Okay, so now again in the orthographic view, I'm going to move this in the x-axis. That way we don't have any clipping as we're modeling our character. And because we took the time to actually adjust the offset rather than just chasing it and scaling it and moving it around, it's going to be a real breeze to just scale it to a size reference. So let's add in a size reference here. We can hit Shift A. We're just going to add in a cube like this. So we actually want to get the cube up here on the ground plane. And you can do that really simply by going into edit mode with Tab. Then we're going to grab the bottom of the cube here. We can do Shift S and cursor to selected just like that. Now we'll tab into edit mode, right click, set the origin to 3D cursor like that. Now we need to set our 3D cursor back on the ground plane. So we'll hit Shift S and we'll do cursor to world origin and then Shift S, selection to cursor just like that. Now all of that can be easily avoided if you have the Sweet Buttons Pro. I'm going to plug my own tool here. If you have Sweet Buttons Pro, you can just do origin to bottom just like that, and then you can do selection to cursor, and there we go. So now with this side panel open, if it's not open for you, you can hit in. Let's go up to the item menu here, and we can see the dimensions right here at the very bottom. So the Z dimension is what we want to focus on. We want our character to be roughly 6 feet, maybe a little bit less. So 6 feet is 1.8 meters, give or take, maybe a little bit more. So let's just make him 1.7 meters. So obviously this is quite off from the scale. So we're going to grab both of our reference planes here. Again, they're not going to be visible to us in perspective, only in orthographic. And then we're going to go up to the top middle here and drop down the transform pivot point. We're just going to change to individual origins. So now we can scale these down and they will scale from their respective origin points. And we can just scale him to be about the size of our cube here, and that's going to be perfect. So now we can grab this cube and delete it. All right, we have our reference in place. So let's just take one more moment to make sure we have a couple of tools installed. As we actually start modeling, we're going to want loop tools and we're going to want modifier tools. So let's go ahead and hit Command comma to open up the preferences. You can also, I think, edit. Yep, edit, and down to preferences right here. And then we're going to go to add-ons and we're going to look up loop tools right there. Make sure that's ticked on. We're going to look up modifier tools and make sure that's ticked on. One more thing you want to make sure that you have ticked on is Sweet Buttons Pro. I'm going to plug it probably throughout this entire video. It's my own little tool. It's just a bunch of easy buttons. If you want to know what each one of them does, I have another video. It's my most recent video. And I just kind of break that down there. So if you want to pick that up, you can pick that up exclusively on mograph.com. I'll have it linked below. But yeah, once you have all three of these things installed, or at least, modifier tools and loop tools, those are completely free to you. We can start to get going on our character. And just to kind of show you what those tools do, if you have a mesh here and you grab any number of faces, loops, or points, and you right click, you'll get loop tools right here. And we'll go over what all of these do in a minute, but it just kind of helps you wrangle some of your edge loops. And then modifier tools. Oh, I actually need that. If you go over here to the modifiers panel, which will be the blue wrench, and we add a modifier, I'll just add in subdivision surface like that. Now you can see we get these four buttons that will just kind of all do exactly what they say they'll do. They'll just kind of help us manage resources in a little bit more of a fluid and efficient way. All right, let's actually get into modeling our character here. Now, the first thing we're going to need to add in is a cube. So let's hit Shift A and we'll select a cube right here. And we can just tab into edit mode. That way we can scale it down without changing its actual scale properties. And we can just kind of move it to where it needs to be. So we're going to do a little bit of light demolition to this cube here. We're going to hit Command R to get our cut edge loop tool. And we're just going to cut it straight down the middle there. Now, if we hold Z and go into wireframe mode, we can grab this this left side here, and we're going to delete the vertices. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and grab the bottom vertices, and we will just delete the faces. So now we want to turn this cube into the t-shirt. That's where we're going to start here. So we need to add a couple of modifiers to our modifier stack, and we're going to start with mirror. And this will do exactly what it says it'll do. It'll just mirror it across the x-axis. And let's go ahead and click clipping. That way, as we move things around, it's not going to actually stray from that middle piece. It like merges it together and welds it there. Okay, the second modifier we're going to add is the subdivision surface modifier. And once we add that in, we can crank that up to 2 levels in the viewport. And of course, if you have the Sweet Buttons Pro, you can just use the modifier stack button there and do it exponentially faster. But, no worries if not. And from here, we want to go ahead and shade that smooth. And we're going to go up to our overlays here and just make sure wireframe is turned on. I guess you don't have to make sure wireframe is turned on. I just like to have it toggled on so that you can actually kind of see what you're doing and see what the wireframe and the geometry is doing as it's being affected by the subdivision surface modifier. So with that ticked on and with everything here, now we can just add in a couple more edge loops. So I'm going to add in one right here. And you know what? I'm going to keep it just like that for the time being. Now, the whole game with box modeling, especially when it comes to something that's organic like this, you want to start really small. You want to start very, very lean with as few vertices or polygons as possible. And then you just want to slowly add on and kind of mold it into what you want to be. Because if you add a billion polygons for right now, changing this shape is going to be very difficult. And I can even show you exactly what I mean. If I apply this modifier, now I have all this applied. And if I wanted to make something as small as changing it to be at the top of the neckline here, it would be a massive pain to get all that where I want it. So we're going to start super big and very, very low poly and just kind of form it to the character itself. So let's kind of start in orthographic view here. We can go into wireframe mode, and we're just going to start by pushing this to the top and just kind of shaping this to the body itself. This can be a little bit dropped off. So as we can see here, it's kind of off kilter here. So we want to kind of move this back to right there. And now we'll just keep pushing and pulling these vertices until they kind of get close to where we want them. Okay, so as we're going here, you can probably tell we're in desperate need of some more geometry. We're not going to get to where we want to be with the amount of geometry that we have right now. So let's go ahead and cut this in half with Command R and add a subdivision there. And then we can continue to just kind of push and pull this into place as we go. But we're going to need to subdivide all this one more time and add another loop here and there and just kind of slowly morph this into what we want it to be. Now, as you're modeling, you might notice that it's kind of a pain to move one at a time, especially if you want to kind of move a whole section, and this is especially true if you have a lot more geometry. So as you're moving things around, if you find it to be a little bit tedious, you can always tick on your soft selection button up here. I think it's called, proportional editing here. It's soft selection, I think, in Cinema 4D. But that will just give you this big circle that you can change the size of with your scroll wheel, if you have one of those. And it will just allow you to kind of bring more influence over the surrounding vertices of the vertice that you're moving. So I'm going to keep that off for now because I don't really need it. But we're just going to kind of continue to add in edge loops here and then edit the mesh, just trying to push it closer to our reference as we go. Because we're keeping it super low poly, it is pretty easy to change the overall form of things without having to do too much work. So that is a positive to keeping things really lean and light right now. We're going to add in one more edge loop here, okay? And then we're going to add in the first cut for our sleeve. So before we do that, a couple of great tools to keep in mind here. If you alt-click an edge loop, that's going to select the entire edge loop. I'm kind of assuming that if you're watching this video, you have at least some amount of knowledge of Blender and kind of some of its modeling tools, but I'll still cover them, just to be thorough. So if you alt-click an edge, it's going to select the entire edge loop. Same for faces. You can alt-click right there and it will select the entire face loop. And then if you want to slide an edge along kind of its own path along its normals, you can double-click G and it will move it like that. And it will maintain its trajectory on these lines, which is really great. So because we had loop tools installed at the very beginning, with this edge loop selected, we can right-click, go to loop tools, and we can click relax. Now you'll see there that I have it assigned to Shift R. That just lets me relax it really easily with a hotkey as I'm going. So I highly recommend you assign it to a hotkey. It does not have to be a hotkey, but I would recommend you assign it to at least a hotkey. So I'm going to continue to kind of relax these, and as you'll see, it just makes the mesh look a little bit better and a little bit more natural. I think we're working with something really good here, so now let's go ahead and try to tackle our sleeves. So to actually add our sleeves, we need to cut a hole in the mesh, and then we need to extrude that hole out. So let's go ahead and select this polygon right here. This is actually a cool trick. You can click one polygon and then go to the other corner of all the pieces you want selected and Command or Control and Shift click that, and it will select everything on that kind of grid line in between those. So that's pretty helpful. So go ahead and click select this one, and then Command Shift click select that. And now we're going to hit I, and that will inset the faces. So we hit I, and then we drag in a little bit like this, and it will inset those faces, and we can just get rid of those. So let's hit X and choose faces. Now, obviously, this is an ugly, ugly, ugly hole and will not look like a sleeve at all. So let's go ahead and select this edge loop here, this circle, this hole that we just cut. And we're going to right click with our edge loops here and choose circle. And that will just change that edge loop into a circular pattern, which is great. So now we can kind of start adjusting this a little bit and making it feel a little bit more like the size of the sleeve of our reference. So we can kind of scale this and move it around. Might even kind of pull it back a little bit so that his shoulders are kind of pushed back with a little bit better posture. Certainly better posture than I have. And we'll just keep pushing and pulling this. That's so much of what box modeling is. It's just pushing and pulling vertices, making little decisions about how things should orient themselves. And eventually, hopefully with a little bit of luck, you get a character that looks okay. So with this edge loop selected here, this sleeve edge loop, let's go ahead and hit E, and that will extrude it out just like that. So now we can kind of place this where we want it. And same thing here, we can kind of scale these different pieces and push and pull those verts to a t-shirt shape. Something like that is looking more t-shirt-y, but it also kind of looks, he looks like a barrel-chested freak. So let's add in another edge loop with Command R. We're going to put it right there, and adding more geometry there will actually tighten the armpit up a little bit, and will make it a little bit less, barrel-chested and jacked. So as you can see, there's some kind of awkward, inorganic angles there. So we're going to hit Shift R with that. Then let's select this edge loop here, and we will Shift select R there as well. And you know what? That didn't do what I wanted it to. So I'm actually just going to drag this down, and I'll drag these up, and I'll just kind of do it manually. Sometimes the relax command makes things just look a little bit more awkward than if you just did it by hand. I think something like that is going to start to look okay. It might be a little awkward. There we go. And I'm just going to add in another edge loop here. So now we can go through here and relax things again, just selecting all of these, and I'm hitting Shift R, but of course if you have your own hotkey or you just want to right click and do it, no problem at all. We're just going through here and we're just making it a little bit looser. Now as you can see here, our reference is a little bit different than actually what our geo is. So I'm going to hit O to toggle on that proportional editing, and I'm just going to use that to kind of drag our t-shirt out, just giving us a little bit more space down here at the bottom. And the more space we have here in the opening of the t-shirt at the bottom, the easier actually modeling legs is going to be. So we're just going to adjust this. And you know what? It does not have to be absolutely perfect. Nothing has to be perfect in 3D. A little bit of some odd shape, a little bit of some mishaps. It's fine. It kind of adds to the character, and I think it makes it look a little bit more interesting. So now we're going to go ahead and add a hole for the fella's neck. So let's grab this top vertice up here, and I'm going to hit Command B to bevel. But if I drag that out, you'll see that nothing happens. I have to now hit V to actually bevel the vertice, and I can pull it out to about where a shirt collar would be, maybe like that. And I can just delete those faces. Now from here, I have ingons. Now, if you are a 3D artist, you already know the perils of ingons. If you're new to 3D art, ingons are just unfriendly polygons that make things a little bit messier when you start subdividing or trying to rig things. Really, you want to work in quads. So what we're going to do is use our knife tool with K. Once you hit K, you'll see that you get a little knife here. And we're just going to snap it. It'll snap to any vertice. So we're just going to snap it here and make a click. And about halfway through this edge, we're going to click there, and then we can hit space to confirm it. We're going to do the exact same thing on this side as well, just like this. And now I can select my collar here, and I can either hit Shift R to relax, or you can use the circular command as well. So now I'm going to take some of these vertices here and just kind of adjust these to work with our collar. All right, this is looking pretty nice. There are some things that I think still look a little bit rigid. So what we're going to do is we're going to select everything with A, and then we're going to deselect the collar, and we're going to deselect the sleeve here. And then I'm going to right click while in vertice mode. So if you want to change that, you can go up here, of course, or you can use 1, 2, 3 on the keyboard. So 1 on the keyboard will put you in vertice mode. And then we can right click and go down to smooth vertices like that. And if you didn't see what happened because my big fat cursor was in the way, this is before, this is after. It just smoothed it all out. And of course, It made some kind of awkward decisions for us, so we can go back in here and change those and fix those. But I think overall, it just made it look a little bit more uniform and kind of fixed some of the awkward spacing of the polygons. Okay, cool. We're about there with our t-shirt, but before we move on to the next piece, we're actually going to add one more modifier. We're going to add in a solidify modifier, and that's just going to add some thickness and some weight to our t-shirt because we're kind of going for more of a stylized, kind of goofy look. We want the fabric to look kind of thick and tactile. We don't want it to look thin and like it's just a plane of geometry. So with the solidify modifier added, we're going to go ahead and grab it. It'll be over here in the top right of the solidify modifier. It'll be like this little grid of dots. We're going to grab those dot grids and just kind of move it in between mirror and subdivision surface. And that will just kind of change the modifier stack. I have another video on that if you're interested. I'll have it linked somewhere on the screen. But all you need to know if you're not familiar with modifiers is that it needs to go mirror, solidify, subdivide. That way it affects the geometry in the correct order. So with the solidify modifier added, we can just increase the thickness a little bit, give it a little bit of some oomph there. But as you can see, we kind of get some weird stretching around the sleeves and around the different holes in the shirt. So let's add a little bit more geometry just to kind of solidify and shore up those edges. So we're going to add in another edge loop right here. And as you can see, as I change my edge loop from side to side, it kind of cheats towards whichever edge loop I'm getting closer towards. And that's totally fine. But if we want this to be kind of down here, but we want it to actually be using the geometry pattern from the top here, we can toggle between those with E and F, just like that. So I'm going to choose F, or E rather. Which one is it? Nope, it's E right there. Essentially, we want the curvature of the new edge loop to match the interior edge of the actual collar. So we're going to do it right here, okay? And I can hit Shift R just to relax that a little bit. And as we can see, that makes it plenty thick. So now I can kind of drop this back down. If things are looking weird for you and things are, way too thick or way too thin for what seems like a reasonable thickness, you can, of course, hit Command A and apply the scale, and that should get rid of any weirdness that you're experiencing. So we're going to add in another edge loop here. And again, I'm going to hit E or F to toggle between those, and I think something like that is good. And you know what? I'm going to add in one more edge loop there just to kind of make it a little bit more even. And I'm going to do the same thing here and bring an edge loop right there. Okay, that makes our geometry look a lot smoother, a lot better, and we have ourselves a functional t-shirt here. So that's super exciting. So the next thing we're going to work on is the pants. And actually, as I'm looking at this, the t-shirt got a little slimmed down when we started relaxing things. So using proportional editing, I'm just going to kind of pull the t-shirt out a little bit and give myself a little bit more room for some pants. We don't want the pants to kind of, clip through the shirt. That would be uncomfortable and awkward. So let's just make sure we kind of dial that in without making him look like a chubby boy. Something like that is probably okay. Okay, cool. So to add pants now, we're going to just start by adding in a circle. So I'm going to hit Shift A, and under mesh, I'm going to grab a circle. A lot of people would probably tell you to use a cylinder, and that's fine. It just gives you more geometry than really what you need to start out with. I just like to use circles rather. It's not that big of a deal. You can use a cylinder if you want. So in vertices, I'm going to change this down to like 12, just to give myself enough geometry to work with, but not be overwhelmed. And then I'll tab into edit mode, make sure everything is selected, and just make this a lot smaller, something like that. Okay. So now from here, I'm going to kind of orient this out and make sure that you're in object mode. Make sure you're not in edit mode, because we want to keep the local transformation of the rotation. That way we can orient things along the Z axis and don't have to chase it the whole time. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that it matches that. And then in edit mode, with everything selected, I can hit E and hit Z again to constrain it. And we're just going to extrude out a pant leg like that. Now I'll have to go into the Y here and move it backwards. I think I screwed up when I kind of aligned my reference here, but that's okay. That doesn't really matter that much. So now we can just kind of go in here and just kind of start pushing and pulling vertices like always, and just start trying to get something that resembles a pant leg. Okay, there we go. I think that's going to do it for our pant leg. I think that'll work for at least a base. And now we're going to add in a modifier stack. So I'm going to add in an X-axis mirror and a subdivision surface. Now, of course, you can add those in manually over here in the modifier stack, but that's what we're going to do for now. And in the mirror modifier, I'm going to choose the mirror object with the eyedropper. I'm just going to choose my shirt here as the main object to mirror that. And now it's mirroring across the origin of my t-shirt here rather than using its own local origin. That way we can maintain its origin without having to have it right here in the middle. So I'm just going to adjust this a little bit more. I can right click and shade that smooth. And you know what? Before I do anything else, I'm going to duplicate this and move this down to like right here and just hide that for now. That way I have another pair of legs to actually add in the ankles when I'm ready to do that. So let's go ahead and add in some geometry here. So I'm going to add in a kneecap with Command R, and I think the knee is going to be about right there, okay? And now we can add in some of these wrinkles. So I'm going to drop this to maybe about right here to the top of the wrinkles, okay? And then I'm going to add in 2 edge loops like this, and then 1 more edge loop, and I can just Alt-Shift select both of these edge loops right here, and then we're just going to scale in the X and Y axis like this. And once you do this, you see it starts kind of gooing together as though it's trying to merge, and that's because we have merge ticked on. So over here in the mirror modifier properties, we can tick off merge, and now we shouldn't get any of that weirdness as we start to do this. So I can just scale this up to about like that. I think that's perfect. And then we can add in another edge loop here just to kind of sharpen that that crease up a little bit. Okay, so I think that's good. And now I'm going to add in another few edge loops just for the back side of the knee, so we can kind of get those wrinkles on where the knee bends. So I'm going to hit Command B while that's selected, and I'll drag this out, and then I'm just going to add in a few more edge loops like this. And now I should be able to grab these faces, or these edge loops, excuse me, and I can pull them out a little bit and just relax them. And now we have a nice pair of pants that has kind of a crease at the edge. And you know what? The knee kind of looks pretty low. So because we kept the local transform data for the object itself, we can just move this in the Z-axis by double-clicking Z, and we can move this up. And that's no problem at all. So now we have a nice pair of pants. Okay, we're going to actually hit Alt-H to unhide the leg piece here, and we can just tab into edit mode and scale this in the X and Y axis. And I'm just going to move this up by double-clicking G, like this. And I'm going to move this piece down by double-clicking G as well. I'm going to put that right there. I'll add a couple edge loops there. That's one thing to keep in mind as we rig this. We want to have plenty of geometry to work with. So if something looks terribly uneven, like these pants, where you have these large swaths of no geometry, go ahead and just add 1 or 2 edge loops to make it feel a little bit more even. All right, we're going to move on to the shoe here. Let's just start really simple. We're going to add in a cube. We're going to do origin to bottom and snap that bad boy to the cursor. If you don't have Sweet Buttons Pro, you can pick that up for $5. I'm going to keep plugging it, and you're just going to have to be okay with it because it's my tutorial. So we're going to scale this up to about roughly a shoe size, and I can scale this down to about where the shoe should fit. I think that's going to be probably good. I'll move this over and kind of square this up on the ankle a little bit. And now I'm going to extrude a face upward like that and extrude a face out. This is just kind of the normal, typical way to make a shoe. So we're going to delete these bottom faces here. We'll add another little edge loop here. And now we can just build the stack like that. So this is already looking shoe shaped. We can delete this top face here. And we essentially already have a shoe. We can dial this in a little bit more and make this a little nicer for sure. But making a shoe really is as simple as everything that I just did. We're going to add a edge loop back here. And I think I'm just going to time lapse. I'm just going to time lapse me working on this, and you can kind of follow along and dial in your own shoe on your own. Okay, cool. So I think that is going to look good for the base of the shoe. So let's go ahead and duplicate this piece right here. We'll hit Shift D with those faces selected and then right click to confirm. And then we're going to hit P on the keyboard to separate that selection from its base mesh here. And now that's its own piece of geometry, which is awesome. So from here, we can select all of these, and I'm just going to hit E to extrude that. And then we can hold Alt S, and it will kind of scale this and kind of expand that from the base there. So from here, we can shrink this in a little bit so that it follows suit. I think something like that is going to be okay. So now what we're going to need to do is actually turn this into the sole of the shoe. So let's go ahead and Shift H, select that, and just kind of dial these in right here. Let's select this interior edge loop or face loop here. We can delete that with X and faces. And then with this edge loop selected, we'll hit F, and that will just close that hole. So we'll close these holes real quick. And but now this has given us a really ugly ingon, and if we were to try to rig this, we wouldn't have the geometry available to actually bend the shoe. It would not be pliable. So let's go ahead and add some edge loops in here, and we'll use our knife tool with K, and we can just go through here and just cut the edge loops that we need to cut. And I realized I added these edge loops up top that I did not need. So, okay, there we go. We have our shoe, and if we turn this back on, it should match pretty well, but let's add a couple more edge loops here just to kind of square up the base there. And as we scale these, if you don't have the individual origins pivot point changed, change this from individual origins back to the bounding box center. That way you can kind of scale from their median point. And as I'm looking at this, this feels really big. So we're just going to grab all three of these face loops here, and we're just going to scale it in the X and Y, just kind of shrink it back in a little bit like that. But we can shore this shoe up a little bit by taking this edge loop and pushing this up, and then grabbing everything and pulling it up just a scooch. And I think we have pretty nice looking shoes here. Same kind of thing. This is super huge on the ankles, so maybe we can just kind of scale all this down to about right there. And now I can maybe raise this top lip up a little, maybe raise the whole shoe up a little, like that. And we're going to add in a solidify modifier to add some substance to the shoe. And we're going to choose only rim, and this will actually only solidify it on the rim. It's not going to add an external face. That way we just kind of save on some geometry that we don't really need. So let's make sure both of these are selected. We'll apply the scale with Command A. Just make sure the scale is 0. And now we can change the thickness to about right there. I can add in another edge loop just to make sure that it's not awkward. And I think that is going to look okay. Now, we shouldn't see the shoe from any other angle, so there shouldn't be any reason for it to like kind of look awkward or anything. But if it does, you can just unclick the only rim and make sure it's kind of behaving itself there. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to untick only rim. That kind of looked a little bit weird from different angles. So I'm going to uncheck that, and I'm going to actually dissolve that just to make it a little bit more stylized. Okay. So let's grab all this and shade smooth, and now we have ourselves a nice shoe. So let's go ahead and mirror this across the X-axis. We can mirror this. The mirror can be on the bottom of the stack if you want it. I still like to just put it at the top of the stack just out of habit. And we're going to mirror the object around the t-shirt. And we can select our sole here. I kind of forgot what that part of the shoe was called. We can select our sole and then shift select our shoe. And then under the mirror modifier that we just kind of dialed in the parameters of, let's go ahead and untick merge. We can go down here to the drop down arrow here, this little chevron, and we can do copy to selected, and that will just move only that modifier over to that object. So here we go. We have a nice looking base. It's coming together. Let's actually select these shoes and kind of rotate them out a little bit so that they're a little bit more, he's got a nice stance. He doesn't look as awkward. And you know what? Our character is really starting to come together. He's starting to look like an actual character, which is great. All right, we've got the basics of our character, but anybody can model legs, a t-shirt, and shoes. So this is really not that impressive, and also kind of looks like a ghost. Now let's actually get to the part of the not ghost character, the hands and the head. Those are kind of two of the most intimidating pieces for a lot of artists. And the hands, I'm going to make it super simple for you. The hands, I hate modeling hands. I've modeled hands 4 times in the last 5 years, I think. Outside of like, specifically dedicating time to study a hand, which I think every artist should do, but it's still very annoying to do. And so for the ease of this tutorial and to not get gummed up on turning this into a 4-hour hand tutorial, I have went ahead and actually modeled a hand, and I'm giving you the hand that I use in almost all of my productions. So I have a low poly, 3-fingered cartoony hand that I will just slap in and then orient into my scene and kind of embed it into my scene. There's still a little bit of massaging that we'll have to do to actually make it into an arm, but we're going to do that. And we're going to start with the hand that I typically use, and of course that is in the project files that are provided, so you can use that. But all that to say, if you want to model fingers and get into hand modeling, this ain't that kind of tutorial. I'm not interested in doing that. Go find somebody else to teach you to do that, because that sounds super boring to me, and I'm not in the business of making boring stuff. So let's go ahead and add in our low poly hand. You can find that in the project files. So we can just drag it and drop our hand in here like this. It'll be a little FBX there for you, and it'll drop in there perfectly. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and just kind of square this up and orient it to our main character. It's kind of annoying. Okay, we'll just kind of rotate him around there. I want to rotate him 90, just like that. Okay, and we're just going to place the hand about where it should be, and kind of in relation to the sleeve here as well. So we can kind of scale it and move it around and kind of put it where it needs to be, but really it doesn't super matter, because what we're going to need to do, if you look at this, we have this kind of oblong, like oval shape of the wrist, which is typical of a hand, because a hand is very flat and it's hard to do a hand that is perfectly circular, and it just kind of makes it look awkward. So we need to convert this kind of oblong shape into a circle or a cylinder by the time it reaches the sleeve here. So let's go ahead and tab into edit mode. We're just going to grab probably this edge loop right here, and we're just going to delete those vertices. Now we can grab a vertice from this poly island over here. We can hit Command L to grab everything that's linked to it, and let's just delete those. Okay, so now we are working from an oblong oval shape, and we need to transform it into a circle about the time it hits right here. So let's go ahead and hit E to extrude, and we're just going to extrude out of its local Z, just like that. So we can scale it down in its local Z so that it's kind of flush there. And as you can see, this is still oblong. So let's right click and change this into a circle. And if you look at it from the top down, it is weird because it's kind of flared like this. But if you look at it from this side, it's perfect. So we need to kind of reconcile that between the two. So we're just going to kind of scale it in the Y just a little bit. Okay, so now it's still kind of circular, but it doesn't look completely flanged like it did previously. So something like that is probably okay. And we will extrude again in the Z like that. And we can see we need to kind of change where this is, but it's starting to look about right. So now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and dissolve this. That way there's not kind of a facet there. And I can grab this piece right here and scale it up just a little bit so that it's kind of comfortably inside the sleeve here. And that's starting to look okay. It's still a little bit odd. The shading is kind of strange because the normals are a little bit weird. So let's go ahead and add in another edge loop. Now we can use that trick we talked about previously with the E and F. And I'm going to orient it to this top piece here and just click to confirm that. And I can grab the top here, and I can make sure this is circular if I really want to dial that in. I'll again kind of change its placement there. And honestly, our arm is looking pretty good. It looks appropriate size. It's not kind of flanged weird, and I think that's going to work. So let's go ahead and grab this edge loop. We will hit Command B to bevel, and we'll just pull out some geometry for an elbow. Add an edge loop here, and then we're going to hit F to make sure that it's kind of using the same geometry orientation to these pieces up here so that it's a little more circular. We can actually grab this and double click G and then hit E to change that orientation as well, and then maybe relax that. And then we can just add in 1 or 2 edge loops there. So this is going to be pretty good. The arm is very visible and it's very pliable. So it's important to have enough geometry that it actually works correctly, but not so much geometry that it's impossible to weight paint or rig correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and add a subdivision surface modifier to that just to smooth it out and make it match. And actually, you know what? I'm going to do one with a mirror as well, and then choose the shirt as the target object for that. And now we have arms on our character. He's starting to really come together and look nice. So I can actually maybe scale this up just a little bit. Just make it a little bit thicker, like that. And I'm going to go back in here, and we want to reduce the amount of overlap geometry that we have. We obviously want enough geometry to overlap that there's not an obvious hole that looks like kind of a ghost man, but we don't want so much geometry that's overlapping that we have to essentially weight paint twice. So we're going to go ahead and just maybe delete this top one, and you know what? I think that's enough. I think that's enough overlap without going too much. I think that's about right. So now we're going to tackle the head. The head is probably the most complicated piece of any character sculpt, or especially character modeling, especially if you're going to add in stuff like ears or a mouth that's, you know, connected and embedded in the geometry itself, rather than like an external mouth, you know, like the weird like sausage mouths or the, you know, cylinder ears, whatever. It's going to be integrated and it's going to be okay. We're going to hold hands and we're going to get through this together because it is a bit of a jaunt to get there. So the first thing we're going to do, as with anything else that we've done so far, we're going to add in a cube. Okay, we're just going to scale the cube down to about the size of our fella's head here in the reference, and I'm going to toggle off a mirror here. You can turn on subdivision surface with the modifier stack, or you can of course add it over here. And make sure that it has 2 levels of viewport display here. I'm just going to make sure this is in the right position. And I'm just going to scale it once again to kind of give it about the general size of our character's head. And that's about good. So if you were to edit this now, it would be kind of annoying because you have essentially 4 sides, or 6 sides. It's a 6-sided cube. You have 6 sides to deal with, and 8 vertices to deal with, and that's not a whole lot of data and information to be able to manipulate. So instead, what you really need to do is go over to the subdivision surface modifier and apply it. And we can apply it with Command A. We can apply it with the Apply All right up here, the modifier tool that we tacked on, or you can just go up here and do Apply, just like that. And now all of this geometry is alive. We can use all of this geometry to model and kind of sculpt out the head. Now, we're not going to do some proper sculpting with a high poly sculpt and then, you know, retopologize it. Not quite yet. We'll get to something like that. But we're not going to do a full in-depth, you know, character pipeline sculpt for the head. I'm just going to keep it really simple so that it's easy to keep up with. And I'm going to make life a lot easier on you. So with our little head selected here, we're going to go up to object mode and we're going to go down to sculpt mode. And we are going to use sculpt mode, but we're not going to retopologize it or change the remesh or use dynamesh or anything like that. We're only going to use the grab tool and maybe the smooth tool. And we're going to use these tools to actually make the head. So let's go ahead and make sure we have a subdivision surface modifier on there. And let's make sure X symmetry is toggled on so that anything we do to one side will do to the other. And we're going to hit G to make sure we have our grab tool, or it'll look like this, a little pinched out thing there. And we can hit F to change the size and Shift F to change the intensity. Or you can do that up here, of course. And we're just going to start sculpting the head into shape. So we're going to use the our reference image as reference, as one would. We're just going to kind of push and pull the vertices with our grab brush until we get something that looks right. Okay, I think that is looking good for our head. So I'm going to go out of sculpt mode, back into object mode. And I'm just going to grab all these bottom faces here, or all these bottom vertices, and I'm just going to delete them. Just get rid of them. Now I can grab this bottom edge loop and Shift R to relax that a little bit. And I'm just going to come through here and just kind of relax all of these. The sculpt is really good, and I think it got us like 80% of the way there. But I think there's still some room for improvement here. Now to continue this, let's go ahead and go into edit mode, and we'll just select half of the vertices, delete those, and we'll just build another modifier stack with the X mirror and make sure clipping is turned on. And now we can start editing only one side of this. So let's grab the bottom loop here, and I'm just going to connect this to the neck. Now I like to make really weak necked goofball characters. I think if you've seen any of my work or even the intro to this tutorial, you know that I like kind of goofy, goopy characters. But you don't have to do it this way. You can do whatever you want with your character. I'm just showing you how I make characters. So something like this is probably going to be good. I can kind of bring this down a little bit. And you know what? I need to probably make the neck a little bit more reinforced. That's probably a little goopier than I really want. Okay, I think that's probably about good for our head. It's a little goofy looking, but as we add hair and eyes and everything, it will get a little bit less strange looking. So let's go ahead and work on our mouth. But before we do that, so that it doesn't look totally crazy and insane, let's add a UV sphere. And we can just make it 16 by 10. It really doesn't matter. The size of the eyes don't really super matter, or the density, the mesh density, just because it's going to be small and it's going to be shaded smooth, and more than likely the camera is going to be a little bit moved back, so it's not a problem there. So again, let's add mirror subdivision surface. Let's choose the head as our kind of target, and there we go. So again, we can kind of look at our character. He's coming along nice. He kind of looks like an alien right now. So let's fix that. Let's give him a mouth. Now the mouth is roughly up here. So we need to bring it down a little bit because the mouth is going to be in the center of a polygon. So this is the polygon that I want to use. So we need to kind of make some room for it. So let's drop this down to here. I'm just sliding it across the edges with double clicking G. And we can just kind of push these into place here. Just kind of make sure everything plays nice. Cool. So let's grab this middle face here. And we're going to hit I to inset it. And as you can see, it's insetting it over here. And if I were to try to make a face out of that, it would be kind of more like a pig's nose than an actual face. So as we hit I, we can just click to set that down, and we can edit it in a second. Let's go ahead and tick off boundary so that it insets it towards the boundary and doesn't include this side that has no geometry aside from the mirror modifier. So now we can change the thickness here. Probably something to about like this, okay? And we will delete those faces, and now we can just grab this edge loop and just kind of pull it in. That might be a little bit too far, so we can kind of pull this in here, pull this part in here. I think that's looking okay. And now we can extrude it inward like this, okay? And we can add in another edge loop here and just scale it so that it overlaps itself. And if we go back into solid mode, we're starting to get lips. It's starting to look like an actual mouth. So we can add in another edge loop here to just kind of shore up the actual lips. Might bring this a little bit closer. And that's starting to look like a mouth. Now let's make it smile. We can grab the edges, or the kind of corners of the lip here, and we can kind of rotate them and pull them up like this. I'll pull these up a little bit too, so we're not too far out. And there we go. That is a smile. That might be a little bit too much of a smile. Might dial it back just a scoocher, like that. Okay, and I think that's good. And that looks like a character that I make. That might not be your style, that might not be the kind of character that you want to make, but as I've said from the very beginning, this is a very cheap, easy character that is kind of a quick turnaround time, and all of the principles that we're using here can be morphed and twisted and changed to fit whatever workflow you want. So, you might not want a character that looks like this, but this is how, you add a mouth into a character. You might not want a t-shirt that looks like this. You might want something else, but that is how you cut holes in a mesh and add sleeves. These principles, they might not apply directly to what character you're wanting to make or what it is exactly that you're wanting to figure out, but they are the general concepts that will allow you to make whatever, creative choices you want to make. So let's finish this out strong and add in some ears. So we want to kind of square all this up so that we're not just chasing our geometry the whole time. So I'm going to square this up a little bit, move that, and this can kind of come down here maybe a little bit. Actually, these can come up to there. and that's going to come up there. So I'm just going to relax all this just a scooch, and that's looking good. Okay, so now we're going to grab these 4 pieces right here, and we're going to do exactly what we did for the mouth, but a little bit different. We will inset these just like this, and we're going to delete the faces. Now I can grab these edge loops right here, and I'm going to maybe push these up a little bit and bring them in like this. Same kind of thing here. I'm going to move them in and just kind of square them off a little bit, make them a little bit more ear shaped like this. Okay, relax it, maybe a scooch. Nah, that was a bad idea. Okay, so that is about right. I can move these geometry pieces out so I can get a little bit longer. Okay, like that. Make sure it's not too disorienting. Okay, yep, that looks good. And now I'm just going to extrude it. And I'm going to extrude it out like this and scale on the X. And I'm just going to place it right there. Now, obviously, this is a little bit off from our reference. It's a little bit higher, but I don't think it's really going to matter by the time we get done with it. So let's go ahead and hit F to close that up, and then we'll hit K to grab our knife, and we'll just kind of cut our edge loop so that we have nice polygons there. We're going to start shaping this into an ear. Same thing that we've been doing. We're just making some creative decisions on how the ear is going to look, but really it's as simple as just kind of trying to match an ear shape generally. So I'm going to add another polygon loop in here, and this will kind of act as a beginning to starting to form our ear, because it's kind of giving us a little bit of a sharper crease there at the baseline, and now we can start playing around with it. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, maybe like this. I'll add in an edge loop, scale that up so that these can kind of come back down. Ears are kind of hard. They're kind of hard for me, at least. Maybe other people feel differently. Some people might be professional ear artists, but they're just kind of a pain to me. They're just kind of a pain. They're a nuisance, and you do what feels like a lot of work to get them to look right, and then it's like, okay, yeah, that's an ear. They're like weirdly complicated in a way that I don't find very satisfying. But that's just me. Again, there might be people out there that just really love the art of ear creation, and good for you. Good for you. You make some ears. Okay, that's starting to look ear shaped. They're a little bit Teletubby-y, so let's grab them like this, and you can grab that one too. We're just going to rotate them and kind of push them back a little bit. Might actually kind of move these around a little bit, like, no, not quite like that. Okay, something like that. Okay, so that's starting to look really nice, and now we're just going to inset them just a scooch. So I'm going to inset those faces. I'll remove these and kind of move these in a little bit, and now we can just maybe extrude them in, maybe just a scooch. You can see how that is. Might relax that, relax this. How's that? That's okay. That works. And let's just add in another edge loop, maybe right here, just to kind of, again, offset them from the head just a little bit. Okay. Now that looks a little goofy and awkward, but once we add hair to the character, he'll look a lot better. Fingers crossed. So this is the base mesh of our character. We have all the clothes. We have shoes on him. He has hands and arms, and finally has a head, a mouth, ears, and eyes. So now we need to kind of dive in a little bit more and add hair to the character so that he doesn't look as freakish. All right, for our final chapter here, we're actually going to tackle sculpting some hair. There are tutorials that exist out there for more realistic hair. In fact, I've made one of them. I've made one of the best ones, in my opinion. Actually, probably not. It's probably not the best one, but it is a pretty good one. It's a pretty thorough one. In fact, I think there are some things that are updating with Blender, so I might need to revisit that. I might need to record another one that kind of updates some of that stuff. So if you want to do hyper-realistic or more, interesting, kind of Pixar-y type hair, you might head on over to that tutorial. I'll throw it up somewhere on the screen. But if you are wanting to focus more on just, powerhousing through a character in more maybe geometry based hair, that's what we're going to do right here. So before we get started actually sculpting, again, I'm using my pen display. I highly recommend if you're going to do a lot of character sculpting or a lot of digital sculpting, get a pen display. It's a game changer. If not, you can use like one of the little pen tablets, or you can use your mouse. I wouldn't recommend you use a mouse, but you can do it. It is possible. But if you are using a tablet, let's go ahead and hit Command comma, because we're going to need to go over to our input here and turn on emulate 3-button mouse right here. And that will turn on Alt as your option to actually move around. Without it, you will be really hard pressed to move, and you'll have to kind of use these commands up here, which are mildly irritating. So let's avoid any mild irritations and make sure the 3-button mouse input change is on. And let's get started sculpting. We're going to sculpt 2 pieces here. We're going to do a really basic, just kind of strip of hair that will go around our character and kind of act as the sides of the hair. And then we're going to create a top piece that will kind of look like it'll look just like the reference, kind of the whimsical, cartoonish character hair right here. And so we're going to do those in 2 pieces, and then we're going to go over retopology in 2 different ways. That will be one will be kind of a pain in the rear, and the other will be a breeze. So there we go. Okay, let's get started. Let's go ahead and add in a sphere. We can hit Shift A. We're just going to find a UV sphere. It does not matter what any of the segments or rings are. None of that matters. All that matters is we scale it down to about the shape of a head, and we get it in the right position. So about right here. And even that doesn't matter. So right here, we're going to go ahead and assign the scale, or apply the scale rather, with Command A. We'll do scale. We're going to go up to object mode, and we're going to change to sculpt mode. So same kind of general principle to sculpt the hair that we used to actually sculpt the head, but this time we're actually going to use remeshing as we go to add more geometry and just be able to push and pull things. We might even use a couple different brushes. In this first one, only focus on using the grab brush and the smooth brush. That way you can just kind of get oriented with sculpting and it doesn't become overwhelming. Now, as we move things, you'll see we start to get kind of these stretched and deformed polygons. And that is really not good. That's not what we want. So as we move them, we need to remesh them so that they kind of reorient themselves to the world scale, and we keep one consistent mesh resolution. So we can do that easily by hitting R, and that will give us this kind of grid that we can move from left to right. We can change the size, and we just want to do something that's kind of medium sized. It's the same principle with box modeling. We start small, move our way, or start big rather, move our way to small. Same kind of thing applies to sculpting, probably more so. You want to start with a very low resolution and then slowly work our way to that fine detail. So we're going to start with something like this, maybe like 0.05, and then you can change this right up here in the remesh section, and then we're going to hit Command R to include that. So once we hit Command R, it will remesh everything. Now, obviously, this does not look good, so I'm going to just hit Command Z a bunch of times and get it back to here. And the last thing I want to do before we actually start sculpting this into the shape of kind of the sides of the hair, I'm going to make sure X symmetry is toggled on. That way, whatever I do on one side is repeated to the other side. Okay, so now let's go ahead and remesh this. And that was not enough geometry. I need a lot more. Okay, so we're going to do something like 0.02. And that's probably about good for now. Okay, so I'm just going to go through here, and if you are orienting yourself to the 3-button mouse, if you've never done that, Alt and click and drag with the pen will orbit, Alt Shift will pan, and Alt Command or Control will zoom. So there you go. That's the sculpting crash course there. F, of course, is going to change the size of your brush. Shift F is going to change the intensity. And yeah, we'll get a little bit more into the sculpting tools and some more of the parameters of them as we kind of go. But for now, I think that is enough to get you started. So let's go ahead. I'll probably put this in a time lapse of me just kind of pushing and pulling. But let's go ahead and create just the side hair strips here. So as we go, there will come a point where you've pushed it as far as you can with the amount of geometry you need. So you can change the resolution and retopologize it, or remesh it rather, with Command R. And so as we go, if you get to a spot where you're like, man, I wish I had a little bit more resolution, don't be afraid to increase the resolution just a little bit and, remesh it with Command R. So, yeah, as we go, that will happen. And, even if you just want to keep the same resolution, like right here, I'm starting to get some kind of awkwardly large polygons and awkwardly small polygons. You can just remesh that with Command R, and it will keep the same resolution, but we'll just kind of even out some of those polygon sizes. Okay, one more thing. We can see that, this works. This is good enough for what we need. But if I go back into object mode here and I hide the head, if I hide the head, we can see that there is a lot of wasted geometry here. There's a lot of space taken up by this sculpt. So I'm just going to go in here and just kind of move all this back. In fact, something like the blob brush would help to push it back. But the blob brush, if I start to draw, it's going to blob out. So I can go up and click the minus, and it will blob in. Another thing you can do is hold Control as we're doing this, and it will do the opposite of its original function. So it will cut and blob in versus blobbing out when you hold Control. So there we go. Now I can turn the head back on and kind of check the size and see, yeah, I have a ton of geometry there that I don't really need. Whoops, I turned on sculpt mode for the head. Just make sure one object is selected. There we go. Sculpt mode. And now again, we can kind of come back in here with the grab brush and just pull it back a little bit. As you're sculpting, sometimes the overlay will get a little bit too much, especially the heavier your mesh gets. So you can always hit Option, Shift, and Z to turn on and off the overlay, or you can go up here to where the overlay is and toggle that on and off, and that will just make it easier to see. It looks a little bit more like ZBrush. Okay, I think that's about as good as we need to get for the sides of the hair. We don't have to get too complicated with that. There's nothing really going on that is that warrants that much detail, so we can kind of keep it at a medium-low resolution here, and we can come back to it and retopologize it, but we don't really need that much detail unless you just want something crazy like, maybe longer hair, or you're going to see the back of the head a lot. If you have a situation like that and you just really want to practice sculpting, go for it. But for this tutorial, we're going to move on to the next piece here, and we're actually going to add in another sphere. So I'm going to add in another UV sphere, drag it up here, make it a little bit smaller, kind of square it up on his head. Okay, I might even scale it down so it's flat. Yeah, something like that, okay? Looks like he has a nice little hat on, and we'll just go back into sculpt mode. Now, same thing here. We're going to turn on X symmetry just for now. It doesn't have to be on forever because we're actually going to make some creative decisions here in a second that will need, absolutely no X symmetry because we want it to be an asymmetrical hairstyle. But just to kind of morph the hair piece, just to morph the hair piece into place, it's good to have X symmetry on. So you're actually kind of like at least starting from a place of normalcy. This kind of helps me define where the hairline is going to be. I think something like that is probably going to be good. Okay, so I kind of have it in a spot that I think is good. So now I'm going to turn off X symmetry, and I'm going to kind of just carve out some hair pieces here. So some of my favorite brushes, I like the blob brush, I like the like crease sharp brush here, I like the smooth and the planer brush, and I like the grab and the elastic snake hook brush. Those are some of my favorites that just have some nice utility. But we're just going to go in here, and I'm just going to draw kind of a knot right there. And again, I'm kind of going for this like cartoonish, like boyish look. So I'm going to add in a few different knots here. I'm probably not going to go overboard. In fact, maybe even 2 is fine. I might turn this little third knot into actually kind of the like side piece here. Yeah, that's going to be right. Honestly, I think I hit it right out of the park on the first try. Sometimes it takes me 4 or 5 times of pushing and pulling verts until I find something I like, but I think that's about correct for what I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm going to start here. I maybe can raise my resolution a little bit to like something like that. Take the crease brush, and I'll just kind of start down here. Just start to kind of cut in a little bit to separate those pieces. Then I'm going to grab my blob brush, just kind of round out some of these knobs. I don't know what they're called. These hair knobs. Okay. I'm going to raise my resolution again. Come back here and kind of smooth these over. Now this is going to be something that we're just going to retopologize. We're not even going to bake it or really worry about anything like that. That just is kind of a waste of our time for today. If you want a tutorial on actually like baking a character, we can get into that. Baking is just one of those things that, you know, it's you're better to do it in Substance Painter. If you want to bake, if you want to do really nice like high poly sculpt into low poly sculpt, that is a great task for something like Substance Painter. But for something like Blender, it can do it. Blender can do it, and it works fine. It's just use the right tool for the right job is kind of the way that I view things. He says as he's using Blender to sculpt. You know, if you want to be a sculptor, learn ZBrush. But sculpting in Blender definitely has its place. I know plenty of really amazing professional sculptors that use Blender as well. But what I'm trying to say is we're not going to bake in this tutorial. That's what I'm trying to get at. We're not baking in this tutorial. But this, you know, this will work for my purposes, for our purposes today. I think that's good enough for the hair. I just want it to be really simple, you know, easy stylized hair without anything crazy or complex. Again, if you want to see more complicated hair or more interesting, realistic hair, you can check out that other tutorial. I'll have it linked in my description as well. If you can't find it, it should be there as well. So just kind of putting the final touches on this. I think this is probably more than good enough for what we need. Just a classic little cartoon fella. All right, there we go. So now we're going to move more into the retopology phase. And I'm going to tell you right now, there is a paid plugin that I'm going to show and kind of teach you guys. It is my preferred way to do it. I think it is the much better way to actually retopologize something as simple as hair. Now, if you want a character that, is going to be bending and moving and you're doing the retopology and the UV baking, whatever, that's a different tutorial entirely. And you're better off using a third-party retopology tool. I honestly, that was my favorite thing about Maya, was its retopology tools. But we're not doing that in this tutorial. We are going to do the easy way. I'm going to show you the hard way in case you don't want to buy the tool. I think it's relatively inexpensive, but if you are interested in it, it's called Quad Remesher. It uses, if not the same, at least a very similar engine to Cinema 4D/ZBrush, their retopology engine. I do think it is the same engine. But it is a great remeshing tool. It works way better than anything that's inside Blender natively. And for something as simple as hair, it does it like that, and it's really, really good results. If you're doing a lot of stuff with type, it's great for retopologizing type, because type in Blender comes in looking super ugly. So, consider checking it out. It's called Quad Remesher. I'll have that linked below as well. But until that point, let me show you how to retopologize hair the good old-fashioned, difficult way, and then I'll show you Quad Remesher. Okay, to retopologize the hard way, let's actually start with our hair here. So I'm going to hit Shift-H and just grab our hair, and we're going to actually change the cursor to where the hair is, just to make it a little easier on us. So let's go Shift S, and we'll do cursor to selected, and that will move the 3D cursor, so that when we hit Shift A and add in a plane like this, it will be up there with our hair, and we don't have to move it around a bunch. So now, let's actually change some snapping modes. If you've never used snapping modes, it does exactly what it sounds like. It just snaps one object to the selected target. So we're going to do face project right here, and we'll just scale this down. We can apply the scale. Yeah, apply the scale right there. And then we'll hit Shift and Tab to turn that on, or you can just click the little button, and you'll know that it's on when it's highlighted blue. So now we can just kind of drag this out, and we can snap it to the face of our hair here, and then we can just kind of rotate it around and kind of orient it. It doesn't super matter because it will orient itself momentarily. And let's just make sure, once again, scale is applied. So the first thing we're going to add in here is a shrink wrap modifier, okay? And we're going to choose the hair object here. It's called Sphere 001 as its target, okay? So now, no matter where I move it, it's going to stay snapped onto the surface here. And I'm going to add in another modifier, a mirror modifier. and I'm going to select this as its parent or its mirror object, and I'm going to turn on clipping. So now I can just kind of move this right here, and it should... Oh, well, no, I need to be in edit mode. If I weren't such an idiot, we could figure it out. Okay, so in edit mode, I'm going to go like this, okay? And now it will stay oriented there, which is great. The last thing we need to do, because this is going to get really hairy really fast if we don't do this, let's go to Object Properties down here, and we can scroll down to Viewport Display and tick on In Front, just like that. And now, no matter where we are, we can see it in front of the other mesh, okay? So now we're just going to go through here, and it is your typical retopology move. It's super boring. It's kind of a mild nuisance, and yeah, you're just going to go through here and you're going to extrude the polygons all the way around it, and you're just going to cover the whole thing in polygons. Now I can show you a couple tools that might make life mildly easier for at least some of it. We can go through here and we can kind of just match the amount of vertices up here to the amount of vertices down here. And now I can grab these two and hit F, and that will bind those two together. And now I should be able to, I don't think I can alt select these. Oh, well, I have emulate 3 mouse button still on, so I'm going to toggle that off for sure. And I should be able to alt select this and this, and now I should be able to go up to face and down to grid fill, and it will fill those. So now I can grab all these and just hit G, and it will snap it to the face. You get the picture. It's a pain. It's mildly annoying to do. It kind of takes forever, and especially on complicated characters, it can be a real dragon to chase. And we don't really want to chase very many dragons, especially when it's something as low effort and low stakes as hair. It's not going to deform weird. You don't really need, you're not counting on it to do anything specific. So we can just kind of take care of the retopology the easy way. So let's go ahead and delete that. Well, I'm going to delete it. If you don't have quad remesher or don't want to have quad remesher, it's too expensive, whatever, keep rocking on that way. You might look into investing into a another remeshing tool or retopology tool. But we're going to use quad remesher now. So I'm going to hit in to open quad remesher. It'll be here in the side panel. If you just purchased it and installed it, you'll have to activate the license key. But I'm going to drop this to something crazy low. I'm going to go to like 500. That's 5,000. I keep hitting 5,000. And I'm going to make sure my symmetry is toggled on like that. And then I'm just going to click remesh it. And in literally 1 second, it gave me a super clean, easy mesh right there. I can even check the, oh, look at that, with really solid edge loop flow. That is really, really cool. And that's great. So now I have a low poly hair. And if I unhide it with Alt and H or Option and H, we can see I still have my high poly hair here. I don't need it, so I'm going to delete it, okay? We're going to do the same thing here, but this time we're going to uncheck the X-axis, and I'm going to increase this to like 750. We'll click remesh. It'll think about it for a second, and it'll remesh it, and it looks great. So I can unhide the original hair, delete it, and we have some lovely hair here. So I'll grab both of these. I'll go to Sweet Buttons Pro, and I will add a subdivision surface to both of these. All right, and that is our character. We got him all modeled out, and he's looking nice. And that's going to do it for video 1. We made our own design decisions, we modeled out the basics, we did a little bit of light sculpting, we did some retopology, and now I think we have a character who's ready to be rigged. In the next video, we'll UV unwrap him, we'll rig him up, and we'll troubleshoot any problems that might arise. Now I know those are a lot of scary words to a lot of 3D artists, but don't worry, I'll be right there to make it as painless as possible. Please be sure to like this video, comment something nice, and subscribe to my channel. Putting out this kind of content takes a lot of effort, and makes it a whole lot more worth it when you engage with it. So help me out a little bit. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.